What's up, guys? Welcome back to Legs Will Move. This is Sully. Just got back finishing a 10K, and I'm gonna go get one of these shoes real quick. So today we're talking about the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3. If it'll focus one of these days. This is a shoe that I've actually had for probably close to 4 or 5 months. I've just really been putting off the review because I hadn't actually put that many miles in it at the time. But I've been running in it a lot lately, and I've got it up to about 50 miles now. I'm not gonna show the shoe on camera too much, only because I'm gonna roll some B-roll in to kind of supplement what I'm talking about. But if you're not familiar with the shoe, which I'm sure you probably are, but it's Saucony's up-tempo daily trainer. You know, for some people that are on the more casual side, you could use this as a race shoe. It's gonna be a shoe in Saucony's lineup that is plated. What's different from some of the other daily trainers or up-tempo daily trainers, well, it's becoming more common nowadays, but still, you do have a plate that runs through this shoe. You can't see it through the bottom like you can on the Pro 3, but it is a nylon plate. It is a winged plate, and when I say winged, basically the plate is gonna run lengthwise, but then kind of through the mid-foot arch area, it actually wraps up. It's like folded up a little bit, and these are the protruding wings that you're seeing right here. This shoe, running through some of the specs really quick, in my men's size 10, this shoe came in at 8.2 ounces, and that's what I just weighed them at after this run. They say that in a men's size 9, they're only 8.1 ounces. So they might actually be overestimating the weight just a little bit, only because I kind of doubt there's only 1/10 of an ounce between a whole size. And both of my shoes were 8.2 ounces rather than something a little bit heavier. This shoe has a 36 millimeter heel and a 28 millimeter forefoot. So you have an 8 millimeter slope or 8 millimeter drop from the heel to the forefoot. The upper is constructed of a lightweight and breathable mesh. They don't call it an engineered mesh or anything like that, but it's just a standard mesh, but it's a really nice mesh.
Say
mesh
again. Say
mesh
again. I dare you. I double dare you, mother. Say
mesh
one more time.
mesh. And that's it as far as like unique tech specs or anything like that. I'm gonna kind of start diving into my impressions of the shoe after wearing it on and off for about 4 months. I know it looks in very good condition. I'm surprised because I actually just took it on a kind of a rainier run, and I was running with someone and I kind of let him lead the way, and we actually ended up running through some trails, and shockingly the shoe didn't really get dirty at all. I don't know. I don't know how, but shoe still looks pretty clean for now. I'll take it. So for the upper, like I was saying, it's a standard mesh. This front toe cap is actually pretty soft. I like that. I don't like it when the overlaid pieces are too rigid, because I usually feel like I can feel them touching me or poking into my foot when the shoe bends or something like that, or if I brake too hard. But this thing actually flexes in pretty easily, but it does maintain, you can kind of see it maintains the shape of the toe up front. The upper is very breathable. I would say above average for sure. It has quite a few perforations in the toe box, but then it kind of relaxes on those perforations as you come through the midfoot. The midfoot is a little bit more structured, particularly one having the extra bit of mesh from being less perforated, but also from having these welded overlays. These are kind of like a thin film, kind of like a rubbery material. And that's on both sides of the shoe. The laces are the correct length. I really like that. I didn't end up using the second eyelet, but the fit was still really good, or the lockdown in the heel was still really nice. With the laces being a little bit on the stretchy side, you can kind of pull them a little bit more than you might usually do, and they don't really feel like they're pinching on the top of your foot so much like some other shoes. The tongue itself is fairly thin. There's not really a whole lot of padding, but I think because the laces aren't really slicing into the top of your foot, it doesn't really matter too much, or at least it didn't for me. I didn't notice any sort of discomfort. If I did have to say one thing about the tongue, it feels like it's really short, like it's barely the height of the collar. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm trying to pull the tongue up and it barely eclipses the height of the, like that's as high as it goes. So the tongue might be a little bit short, but other than that, I really don't have any complaints about the tongue at all. Like most shoes, you do have a little bit of a rigid heel back here. It's nothing crazy. You do have a tiny bit of padding. It's not overdone. I didn't notice anything discomfort, because if the fit's really good and your foot's not sliding around in the shoe, you really don't need much padding at all. That's just maybe going to cause more friction and lead to blisters, but with this being kind of stripped down and well fitted, you won't really notice too much discomfort despite the upper being a little bit more minimal. You do have one reflective element. I don't think it's going to come through on camera, but I have inspected the shoe with a flashlight. This gray strip, all of that is reflective. And it's a good bright reflective component. I do wish there was some reflective components maybe on the sides or on the front. I like it when a shoe has reflective components on all four sides, front, back, left, right, but you just have that one piece in the back. Moving down to the midsole, this is Saucony's Power Run PB. Saucony has 3 foams in their Power Run lineup. They have Power Run Plus, and Power Run PB. Power Run Plus and Power Run PB look very similar, but Power Run PB is the highest performance version of that foam in their lineup. It's of the super foams out there, it's kind of on the, I want to say firm. I know someone's gonna probably get upset about that word, but it's not like a super soft plush foam. Like you're not gonna step on this and just like squish into it like the heel of the Alpha Fly, which I feel like when I'm stepping on that, my heel actually just sinks down really far. This is a very deliberate use of foam. It's definitely on the snappier side. It feels more like a normal shoe, but with a lot more energy. It's a very energetic, very snappy ride. And I know it does have that plate in it that we mentioned earlier, but I'm really not putting that much effort into it, and it actually flexes pretty normal. And you see it's, I wouldn't call it the snappiest shoe ever. I mean, it's got some snap to it, but I know a lot of people say this plate adds a lot of snap and response or whatever. I don't think it adds too much. You know, shoes like the Hoka Mach 5, you'd be shocked. They don't have a plate in them, but the Hoka Mach 5 is also very like, it snaps really hard if you try to bend it and stuff. But I guess what I'm really trying to say is I wouldn't expect this to give you the same sort of snap as something like a carbon fiber plate, if that's what you had in mind when you heard that this had a nylon plate in it. But I don't think the nylon plate is useless. This shoe has a ton of stability in the shoe, shockingly so. Like this shoe, if you go to Saucony's website, they don't even call it corrective or supportive. This shoe is extremely sure-footed. It feels, you know, I was looking at the base of this and I was wondering if it was a lot wider than what it was, because, you know, I was just thinking, you know, I've worn it a ton of times and I've ran in it quite a few times, but I was running in it tonight, and I know some other shoes that I have that have wide bases, but because of their foam being a little bit softer and having no plate, they still feel tippy-toppy, like they're gonna tip over a lot more than this shoe. This shoe at no point feels like it's gonna tip over if you go around a corner or anything. It's very, very sure-footed despite being on the higher end of stack. I think that also has a little bit to do with the fact that this midsole isn't super like curved. It's not super rockered. I know that Saucony calls this the speed roll technology, and they're basically talking about the curve and the geometry of this midsole. It's not as curved as some other shoes. It's not so extreme. In fact, it doesn't feel so dissimilar from a regular running shoe, especially because I think when you put weight on the shoe, you can kind of see, I'm not doing a whole lot, but you can see the shoe will flatten out a little bit. And so by the time you put your weight in the shoe, it's not as curved as it looks to be. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I think that if you were looking at the shoe and saying like, I don't want all that weird stuff, it's not all that weird stuff. It feels like a very responsive, fairly cushioned, very stable, regular shoe. And that's a lot of qualities to like about a running shoe. As far as softness, if you wanted me to give it a quick comparison, if you've never tried it before and you're like, what is it close to? It's not as soft as Nike Zoom X. It's not as soft as New Balance Fuel Cell, if you've ever tried that foam. It is soft, but it's a really fast foam. Like it compresses and then it comes back to shape really fast. That's really the best way that I can describe it, is just that it's a very fast foam with a lot of energy, but it sounds like I'm avoiding calling it soft. And that's just because there's so many soft, like truly soft foams on the market. I don't want to say, you will not feel like you don't have a cushioned shoe underfoot. The shoe has plenty of cushion. It's just not as plush and pillowy as a lot of other shoes. It's more of a speedy type of a feel. It's an energetic type of a feel with plenty of impact protection and plenty of cushion. Moving on to the outsole. This shoe uses rubber very similarly to the Asics Glide Ride 3. It's like strips of rubber. It's not tons of rubber. And it's fairly shallow uses of rubber. You can see it doesn't really extend very much at all. You can see right there, it does extend a little bit, but it's not very much. But I have found that the rubber does maintain contact with the road rather than allowing the midsole to touch the road. There is one spot here where the midsole is exposed. This is midsole. Everything else, I know these are all kind of the same color, but this is midsole, and the rest of these chevrons and these lines here, this is all rubber. But I don't really have any wear on any of the exposed midsole, despite there being a lot of exposed midsole, which is actually not something that I could say for the Glide Ride 3. The Glide Ride 3 had it was like very even. The midsole and the outsole were very even, and there were parts where the midsole was getting chewed up on the corners. But I actually have more miles in this than I did during the Glide Ride review, and this doesn't have any midsole wear. The grip, I mean, if you're running on roads, it's perfectly fine because you are having rubber contact with the road and it is grooved. You do have these chevron patterns, this toe off piece right here. And this is almost like it's for, I guess, braking coming down a hill, I suppose. Even though I said I took this off the road, not my choice. I was following someone else when I was running. It was fine, but I think that's just luck on my part. I would not take this off the road. The shoe is not made for it. It's fairly flat, almost bald, but on the road it seems fine. The wear on the tread itself seems good. I haven't really noticed much fraying anywhere. I'm trying to see if rubber is picking up anywhere, and I really don't see any spots where the rubber is starting to fray off on the corners. So far so good. Seems like it's gonna go the distance. And you know, the two big things, or I guess three, is looking for fraying and breaking apart of the rubber. I don't see it. The lessening of the midsole, and the midsole feels just as poppy and energetic as it did out of the box. And honestly, the upper, again, I'm shocked it's still white. I don't know how it stayed clean, but the upper doesn't seem to have any like fraying around the corners or anything like that. I don't see any like cables or anything coming loose. So far, durability seems really good on the shoe. Overall, like, what do I think of the shoe? It's really solid, super solid, especially if someone was wanting to get like a much nicer running shoe. You know, if there's people that are just getting into running and they're like, hey, like, what's a really good running shoe? But you don't want to get them anything weird. You know, a lot of the running shoes right now are trying a lot of funky things. I think this has a lot of the benefits of a 2023 running shoe. It has a plate, but it's not a very intrusive plate. It's got a super foam, but it's not squishing and squashing all over the place. It's just very energetic and helpful. It's got a rocker, but again, it feels pretty normal to me. It doesn't feel incredibly rockered like some of the other shoes that I've tried. I think this is a really nice shoe for them to go for. One final note on the fit. This shoe is incredibly accommodating too. I wanted to say, compared to a lot of the other men's size 10s, this shoe is quite wide. I'm not saying it's a sloppy fit. It's that the upper, I know I said the laces stretch a little bit, but it's almost like the upper has maybe a little bit of stretch as well, maybe. In comparison to a shoe like the Glide Ride, this is actually a little bit more accommodating than the Glide Ride, and this shoe also comes in a wide. But I'll say this, if you're narrowly, like you're barely wide, I would actually consider getting the regular one, just because the regular one to me is one of the wider regular shoes out there. If you have a genuinely wide foot, then I would consider the wide size for this shoe. Actually, let me make sure I didn't get the wide. Yeah, so I just double checked. I have the regular shoe, but you know, it's wide enough. I had to check because it's quite accommodating, but not in a way, it's not sloppy at all. You can definitely get a good lockdown with it. So that's everything I had to say about the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3. Thanks again for watching Legs Will Move. We really appreciate your viewership. If you really want to help us out, you could give us a subscribe, like this video, or if you don't want that to pop up into any of your, if you like have a liked video playlist, just comment down below. I mean, if you're not familiar, giving someone a comment on YouTube helps a lot with the algorithm. It lets YouTube know that you're engaging with our content. It really helps show our videos to new viewers who haven't yet found our channel. So again, we really appreciate all the help. Hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, put them down below. I'll be checking that and get back to you guys. And Legs will be moving, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Bitch.